Hey guys, I'm Common Ramen here. As you could probably already tell, we are doing a video on Mint Delivery. This is a game in the same universe as Mint Works by Justin Blask. They both are part of Mint Tin collection. You can see they came in a Mint Tin. This one was a little bit taller, but it came with more components. Obviously, I wanted to do a quick look at this as far as a solo play is concerned, because again, this is for my gaming on the go, where I take a look at solo play games in very small packages. And as you can see, I already have the solo play map set up. As a quick disclaimer, if you've seen my Mintworks video or you've played Mintworks, then you already know that the solo play has pretty close similarities to the multiplayer. That is not the case with Mint Delivery. Mint Delivery has some very, I want to say, major differences between the multiplayer and the solo play in both map and kind of actions that you can do. So really quickly, I'm going to flip these over because these cards are double-sided, and the other side of this actually reveals the map that you'd be using for the multiplayer game, which is vastly different from that of the solo play game. So in the multiplayer game, what you are doing is you are taking mints from the main factory and you're taking them out to the different areas, Spearmint Springs, Cinnamon Center, Peppermint Pines, and Freshness Falls, to deliver orders based on what they ordered. When we flip them over, the game changes a little bit different, or a little bit in the fact that now, instead of taking the orders to specific places, you are actually working inside the warehouse, fulfilling invoices to the different bays that will take these mints to the areas that they, I guess, belong to. So, Cinnamon Center, Freshness Falls, Spearmint Springs, and Peppermint Pines. So the game is a little bit different when you play as solo than it is for multiplayer, both in map and kind of in style of play. I'll go over the actions and the rules at some point in time during the video so you can kind of see that. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of go over the components. Some of the multiplayer components you just won't see in solo play, so I want to go over those. Then we'll take a look at the rules, and I'll walk you through it really quickly. Then after we've set up the map, I'll kind of go over the AI and list them in difficulty and explain why I put them at the specific difficulties that they are. So first and foremost, we have the mints. And in this game, we have the white mints, which are classic mints, the green mints, which are peppermints, and the red mints, which are cinnamon mints. And you just have a various number of those. Then we also have all the different trucks. I think it's cool that the meeples in here are trucks, since you are being a truck driver. And each one of them has a different color and number. Not really sure that the number has any real value in this game. They could have just done colors and it would have been fine, but they put a number on here. As far as the rules that I've read, I've seen no actual reference to the numbers besides that the AI drives specific trucks, but they're also referenced by color, so I'm not sure why they have numbers on them, but that doesn't matter. We have 5 trucks, 1 for each AI, 1 for each player if you have a 5-player game, and they come in 5 different colors. Then you have your starting player token. Same as the one from Mintworks. We have our Mint Delivery Employee of the Month card. This one just basically is awarded to the player who won the game, and it just basically determines who the first player for the next game is. Then we have a thing called player abilities, and these abilities are used only in the multiplayer game, and they're a way to add difficulty or flavor to the base game. You do not have to use these, but they are available should you want to use them. Go ahead and take that off. Then we have the orders. And with the orders, essentially the only thing you need to know is where it's going, what they need, and how many victory points it's worth. Each order is going to go to a different place. It's going to require different mints. It's going to have different victory points based on the difficulty of the mints required. Trying to get 4 white mints is a little bit harder than, getting 1 white mint. And like, for instance, this is 2 red mints and it's 5 victory points. It's kind of difficult to get red mints. So, not going to go through all of these, but essentially you have an order deck that's this big. For the solo play, you're actually only using half of it. You're using 20 of the cards, 4 piles of 5. So we'll toss those to the side. This card that you'll get, this is a representative of where the player abilities go. Obviously, you're not using every player ability that's available. You're just using the player abilities. You're using 3, randomly picked player abilities. The icons here, I'm not sure what they're for. I haven't played with player abilities, so I don't know the exact rulings behind it. I just know that this is what the player ability card is for. And of course, these are the tokens that go with it. And I'm sure that these tokens are supposed to go on the specific spots and that there's some significance as to why they even have tokens, but I don't know what that is, so I apologize. Right here is road condition tokens. This is only used in the multiplayer as well, and it is a way to add difficulty to the game should you think the game is too easy. It is a quick game, so I could see why these could be useful. It could help elongate the game. And then last but not least, we have our truck cards, and our truck cards are double-sided, so we have the truck on one side. So if we're playing the multiplayer game, these are the trucks that each person is going to have, and it's just going to represent the color that they're playing on the map. But on the opposite side, we have the different AI, and as you could probably imagine, the truck they drive is, the truck card that they're on. So RA is the black truck. So that is the components that you're going to receive with this game. As you can see, it takes up a little bit more space than Mintworks, so we're going to have a bigger tin. I don't think that really detracts from the game. I think that's actually really neither here nor there. It's still a very small box, and it still very much can travel inside your pocket. This next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the rules. I'm going to show you both sides. We're not going to go into them, or at least we're not going to go into the multiplayer that much, but this is your setup guide for a multiplayer game. You can see the map, you can see the 4 piles and the players and their trucks and so on and so forth. And then this is a section explaining the primary actions that you can take. Up top, it's just going to tell you the dichotomy of some of the cards. And then right here is just your end of game scoring advanced variants. The advanced variants are going to be the player abilities and the road, what do they call those? I said it earlier, but I already forgot what it was. The obstructions, basically, on the road. Road conditions, which is actually back here on the back as well. We have the player abilities. It's further explained right here. And then the dichotomy of that card. And then the road conditions. So you can see the top. And then what each of those road conditions means. And then last but not least, we'll take a look here at the solo version of the game. We look here. This is how you're going to set it up. The cards on the top, the order cards, it's going to be 4 piles of 5 cards with the top card revealed. And then down on the conveyor belt looking things, which is what they are, you're going to have an available pool of 10 mints per conveyor belt, so a total of 20 mints altogether. And most importantly, you only have access to the first 4 mints on the belt. So be careful about how you strategize. And then really quickly, we have the solitary actions. So to go over them in more detail, one action you can use is to move 1 space. As a free action, you can fulfill an order. Another action you can use is to load mints, and loading mints is as follows. If you would like to load 4 white mints, that is 1 action. 2 green mints is 1 action, and 1 red mint is 1 action. But like I said, you only have the available first 4 mints available to you at any given time, so you won't necessarily always have the ability to take 4 white mints. It's just you have the option. You can if it's there. One action you can take is to take an order. As the player, you have a maximum of 3 orders that you can have at any given time. The AI will be have a limit based on their workload, which I will show you on the card. And then the final action you can do is shift mints, where you're basically going to take the first mint at the front of the belt and you're going to move it to the back of the belt and then shift all the mints up 1. I'll show you that right now. Each of the AI cards also has a set of motivations that it'll do, regardless of what its rule card says. Well, I should say a set of motivations that are augmented by what their rule card says. Sorry about that. Just dropped a whole bunch of mints. So we're going to go ahead and put the mints on the belt really quick here. Not very randomly assigned. As you can see, we have a whole bunch of white mints, but only 1 red mint. So your belt should look like this, where, I'll just move these guys out of the way for now, where you have 10 spaces full, and these right here will be your first 4 spaces available. And there's an arrow on the card that shows the direction, so you can kind of see where the first 4 available mints are. And if you're confused, you can actually look at the rules. This is the way the rules say to set it up as well. So you can kind of determine from there. This is your first 4. So if you want to shift a mint, let's say you wanted access to these 4 white mints and you don't really need the red mint, you would just simply take this red mint, move it down to the end of the belt, and then you would shift everything else up 1 space. And that essentially changes the 4 mints that are available to you in the very beginning. In this case, it gives you 4 white mints. And, well, I mean, there's nothing else to say. It changes the way the mints are available to you. You may use this as both your actions. It really depends on the orders that you have to fulfill and the colors that you need. But that is the shift mints action. So we'll go ahead and put the map back here. All right, so I'm going to go over the basic motivations that your AI are going to have, no matter which AI they are. And then we'll go over each different AI and the difficulty that I kind of just decided they were and reasons why. So right here is your AI motivation. And their very first motivation is always going to be complete orders. So if they have all the mints that they need for the orders that they have available, they are going to immediately try to complete those. And what that means is that if they have 2 orders and they have all the mints for 1 order, they're not going to stop getting mints until after they have all the mints for both orders. They need to have all the mints for both orders before they go to the complete order step. Once they've done that, the next motivation they have is to take orders. So once they've completed their orders, the first thing they're going to do is go immediately back to where you take orders, and they're going to take orders in the fashion that their card allows them to do so, which I'll explain. Once they've taken their workload of orders, their next motivation is to get mints. They're literally just going to go down into the factory and pull mints off of the conveyor belt in the order that they need them until they have all the mints they need, and they will then go and complete the orders. So you'll notice really quickly on the board that there is a section that is specifically for the AI for picking up mints, and it actually has access to both conveyor belts, so they have a little bit of an advantage there, since the points for the human acquisition of mints is on the left and right hand side. So if this belt happens to have the mints you need and you happen to be over here, then you have to take the movement to get over to this belt and then to get the mints. You do not have access to both belts at the same time. So the AI already has an advantage right there. That's basically it. So I'm going to go over the AI really quickly. So from first to last, I chose easiest, and then the last AI is going to be the hardest. And like I said, I'll explain why I listed them in the order that I listed them. So we have Ari. Ari's workload is 1. She drives the black truck, and when her motivation is to get mints, she simply just stops moving. If the player loads any mints matching types needed, Ari will also load as many mints of those types that she needs. Okay, so she's not going to move once she gets her orders, and she won't get mints for her orders unless you get mints that match the color. Okay, she's going to take orders from Freshness Falls first, and if there are no orders from Freshness Falls, then she moves down the list to the next orders. If there's a tie, so if there's 3 orders from Freshness Falls, she's going to choose the order that has the most victory points. And if there's a tie there, she's going to choose the leftmost order. And that's how all the AI work. So let's talk about Ari and why I thought she was easy. At first, when I read this, I actually thought she was going to be harder to play against. I had actually played Justin, which I'll show you right here, as the first AI that I played because I thought he was going to be the easiest AI, just because in Mintworks he is the easiest AI. In here, it turns out Ari's ability to skip shifting mints and actually skip collecting mints altogether seems like a really powerful ability. And if the orders she picks up have multiple mints available on them, it kind of is a powerful ability. But what happened in the game that I played against her, and what I think will happen often, is that she got a order that required her to get 2 green mints. And there were orders available that required white and red mints. And so once she got the card, she stopped moving. So I took advantage of that opportunity and only completed orders with white and red mints. And because I was only getting white and red mints and she didn't need white or red mints, she just stood there. She did nothing until I was forced to get green mints. And at that point, the game was so far gone that it didn't matter how many orders she completed in the next future steps, because I had pretty much run away with the game. I had completed something like 15 orders, I'm sure of it, to her 3. And so it ended up being a double-edged sword for her, where she can collect mints very quickly. Let's say she has 2 white and a green, and I happen to pick up 1 white mint. She just collected her 2 white mints. And then let's say the next order I have requires me to pick up green mints. Well, then she collected her green mints, and she has to move far less to turn in her orders than I do, because she's only ever going to be in really 2 spots. She's either going to be up here taking orders, or over in this upper area turning them in. So she never visits this bottom area ever. And it does seem powerful, but it is a double-edged sword. If she ever ends up with an order that requires her to get 1 red or 1 green or 2 green, you can literally tailor your playstyle to just complete orders that don't require the mint that she needs until you have no choice. And by that point in time, you should usually be so far ahead of her that it's laughable. So, yeah. Easy play. It's a fantastic AI to start with if you're trying to learn the mechanics for the game and the movements and how to just go about the entire game. But it is not a competitive AI. It's a very easy AI. So we'll move on. Next we had Derek. Derek has a workload of 1. He drives the blue truck. he can load up to 4 of any mint when loading, regardless of its type. And he can only load 1 type of mint per action. I think they put this in here because this was slightly ambiguous, and it makes it seem like he could just load like 2 green, a white, and a red. So in this case, it's telling you it can either be 4 white, 4 green, or 4 red. So the reason that I think that he's not super difficult, even though he can literally take 4 red mints, which is incredibly advantageous for him when you compare it to the human player who can only take 1, is because the orders very rarely need you to pick up more than 3 green mints or more than 2 red mints. So if he does happen to get an order that requires him to pick up 2 red mints, then his ability will happen and he can take advantage of it. But in most cases, that doesn't happen. And because I knew that, I also could just tailor my playstyle to grabbing those orders before he gets the opportunity to minimize the number of times he gets to use his ability. It just didn't happen very often. And to further that, when you turn in an order of mints, you take those mints and you put them back on the conveyor belts. So we'll take a look at this conveyor belt. Let's say there were 3 mints missing on it, and I turned in an order for 3 mints, and the other belt's full, then I just put them back on the back of the belt until the belt is full. And so you get an advantage there because you get to choose how they go back on the belt. And the way I was doing it was I was alternating mints. So if I had a white, a red, and a white, I alternated it exactly like that. Or if I had a red, green, and white, I would put them out like that. And I would never put light colors together unless I had to, because when it came up to the first 4 mints on the belt, it would alternate, red, white, green, white, and his ability becomes less potent if the mints are alternating like that. So maybe I'm playing that wrong, but I couldn't find anywhere in the rules that said otherwise, so I just assumed that I could do that. And that essentially made my game against him feel like, let's just put it this way, when I played against him, he didn't use his abilities once. And because of that, it was like I was playing against an AI, but I was playing against an AI with no ability. So it was harder than when I was playing against Ori, who literally would just sit still. But it was easier than playing the other AI because his ability never happened. So all I had to do was keep tempo on him. And that was it. So we'll move on to Justin. He actually made it to middle of the pack with this one because his ability is actually pretty good. For starters, he has a workload of 2, which means he's going to have, first off, he's going to pick up 2 orders from the order pickup place before he leaves. And that also means that he's going to spend more time down here picking up mints for those orders because he cannot leave there, or at least his motivation won't change until all of the orders are full. So his ability is that he is not limited to the first 4 spaces when loading mints on the belt. Okay, so that basically means that while we only have access to these 4 mints, if he needed the red mint, he could literally take it right off the back of the belt. And any mints that were on this belt as well. I don't think that he can access both belts at the same time, so if he needed a red mint from here and a red mint from here, he couldn't do that. Well, partially because you can only take 1 red mint per action, but also because it's on 2 different belts. But he's still not limited. So what does that do? It means that he is eliminating the shift mints step. So how do you beat that? Well, the first off, the thing you do with all of your AI is you try to make sure you're always picking up the highest value victory point cards, basically. So if you have an order worth 5 victory points up in the queue, you should probably pick that up. The second thing is you have to try and figure out how to eliminate the shift mint step for yourself as well. And this goes back to Derek, where I was when I was turning in orders for him or for myself and loading the belts back up. I was loading the belts back up, alternating for him, but for Justin, I was loading up the belts in a fashion that would allow me to get the mints I needed when I needed them, and also be aware that he's going to pull whatever mints he needs from whatever belt he needs, from whatever position on that belt he needs it from. So essentially, I had to plan like 2 steps ahead of how he was going to pull mints so that I didn't have to shift mints, and him pulling mints actually shifted the mints for me. Long story short, he's a little bit more difficult, but as long as you keep tempo on him and you're aware of where you're placing your mints when you're turning in orders, you can minimize the number of times you have to use the shift mint action. And because he spends more time down here collecting mints because he has 2 orders he has to collect for, it also helps with the few times that you do end up having to shift mints. So in the long run, he made middle of the pack. So next was Sonic the Cuteness. Now, Sonic the Cuteness was the hardest AI in the first game, in Mintworks, until they came out with the expansion AI. And in this one, he almost made that title. And I'll explain the reason why I chose the one that why I chose Mel over Sonic. But first, let's go into the abilities. He has a workload of 1. And he can move up to 2 spaces with 1 action. So he's fast. And I can tell you from the experience of playing it, he is fast. It is insane. What ended up happening with him was that I had to forcibly choose to pick up anything that had a victory point value of 5 or 4 before he did, and force him to take orders that had values of 3 and 2. And you do that by strategically making sure that if the Peppermint Pines orders are up there, that they're only worth 2 or 3 points. Or if there are none, the next subsequent thing that he picks, which is Freshness Falls, only has 3 or 2 points. And the reason that I had to do it that way was because he was very fast. Once he picks up his 1 order, his first action is to pick up the order. His second action, after his motivation changes because his workload is filled, is to go get mints, is to move down here. And moving from here to here is 2 spaces. 1, 2. So he only takes 1 action once he picks up the order to move from where he picked up the order to where he needs to pick up the mints. And normally it would have taken him a whole nother turn, which means that his next turn he could devote both actions to getting the mints he needs. And if he only needs 1 action to get those mints, then he can devote the second part of his second turn moving towards where he needs to pick it up. Drop it off. So if he needed to drop it off at Freshness Falls, he's going to turn it in as his first action on his third turn. And you, at that point, are still trying to get your mints. So he's fast. And what ended up happening was I was able to keep him getting 2 and 3 point victory point cards. Then something unfortunate happened. There was 2 piles out, and the win condition, I did forget to go over this, is that once 3 of the piles are out, the AI gets 1 extra turn, and then the game is over. You count up your victory points and you go from there. What ended up happening was that 2 of the piles were out. One of the piles had a Freshness Falls order that had 5 victory points, and the other pile had a Spearmint Springs order in it that I think had 2 points. I'm not even sure how many points it had. And the pile with the Freshness Falls 5 victory point card in it only had 1 more card besides that one in it. So the best thing I could do at the particular point in time was to rush up there and grab that Freshness Falls order before he got there. But no matter how I did the math from where I was at, it wasn't going to happen. He was just faster than me. So he made it up there, grabbed the order, and got down to the conveyor belts in the first turn. And so when I ran up there to grab the last order in that pile to do I actually had to do the math. I could have either gone from where I was to pick up the order, to pick up the last order and trigger the end game, and he would get one turn to fill up on mints and then go turn in the order. Or I could go turn in my order and then make my way up there. And what ended up happening was that no matter how I did it, he was going to get the points for the order. I don't remember exactly why it happened, but basically RNG said no. And I ended up losing against him by 1 point. And to me, it was like, it hurt because to me, if it had been any other point value, I actually would have either tied or won. And because RNG said, here's a 5-point card that you're not going to be able to get to quick enough, he won. And now let me explain Mel and explain why I think Mel is more difficult than Sonic, because obviously I lost to Sonic. But let's talk about Mel. Mel has a workload of 2. And for every order you complete, she gets 1 victory point. So right off the bat, you can already tell that you need to make sure that every order that you complete has a high victory point value, and that you complete as few orders as possible. That way you can minimize the number of points that she's getting. And then on the flip side of that, you have to make sure that every order she's completing has a minimal amount of victory points, I guess, coinciding with it. So with her, you want to keep her getting 2 and 3 victory point orders, and you want to keep picking up 4 and 5 point orders. So I went into the game with that mentality, and it was working. She was picking up nothing but 2 and 3 point orders, and I was picking up nothing but 4 and 5 point orders. And midway through the game, the only orders available were 2 and 3 point orders, and I needed to pick up orders. She was still picking up mints, and I didn't want to lose tempo, and just because I couldn't pick up orders that I liked. So I ended up picking up 2 of those 3 point orders. Fortunately, RNG gave her 2 more 2 and 3 point orders, so I didn't mess myself up there. What ended up happening was that at the end of the game, I did manage to keep her only picking up 2 and 3 point orders. She never completed an order that was over 2 or 3 points. But on my end, because I did have to complete an order, actually 2 orders with 3 points, that's what killed me. I actually lost to her by 2 points. And what I had determined was that that during the game, not only do you have to pick up every 4 and 5 point order and make sure she gets only 2 and 3 point orders, but if you ever have to pick up more than 1 3 point order, you are probably going to lose. And if you ever pick up a 2 point order, I'm pretty sure you are going to lose. And if she ever picks up a 4 or 5 point order, just one of them, she's going to win. And so for her, it was actually a matter of math. It was a consistent strategy. She could consistently win if you did not fall within that strategy. Whereas with Sonic, what happened was a slight RNG issue where he managed to get a hold of 1 5 point order, and that was the only thing that kept him alive. There's not a necessity. There isn't necessarily a consistency that's going to happen there. With Mel, it is definitely a consistency. It will happen every single game, no matter how hard you try. If you pick up 2 3 point orders, you're probably going to lose. And that is why I think Mel is more difficult than Sonic is. Sonic is still hard, but Mel is, you have to be perfect every game to win. So that is the AIs. That is their difficulty levels and the reasons why I think they are that way. This is Mint Deliveries. There's not much else to say about it. The game was so fun. I think each game took me about 10 minutes. Didn't take much longer than that. So it's a short game. The longest part of the game was setup, because you have to reshuffle all the cards, deal them out, make sure you have to pick 20 random mints. So however you choose to do that, you pick out 20 new random mints and you assign them to the belts randomly. So how they go on the belt is randomly done as well. I don't know how you're going to choose to do that. It's up to you. But the game itself, the longest part was setup, and it was so much fun. I really enjoyed not only the gameplay, but I also really enjoyed the components. Just in general, the fact that this can fit in a tiny little mint box, again, was super shocking. Even though the games only took 10 minutes, I couldn't imagine them taking longer than that, because I felt like I got a full experience out of it. And that's not me exaggerating or me trying to talk up the game. It literally had an experience into it just in 10 minutes. I remember sitting back and evaluating the gameplay and deciding what I did wrong and or how I could do better, or this, that, and the other. And the game only took 10 minutes. And I don't usually do that with a game that only takes 10 minutes. A lot of the time, if a game takes that long, I'm wondering what happened to the gameplay. And this definitely was full of gameplay. There is obviously a multiplayer side to this, and you should definitely take the time to play the multiplayer side. It's a whole different game, and it makes you think on a whole different level. I got a chance to play it with one of my best friends, and the game, again, only took about 15 minutes, I want to say. Maybe less, but it was a scramble. It was to keep up with the opponent that you're playing, depending on their player level. I'd like to say that we both are above average. There was some definite scrambling going on at the end of that game. Like, am I going to get there in time? Do I have enough mints? Do I have enough time to get the right mints? Just stuff like that. It was a fun game. Kudos again to Justin Blask for making it not only fit in a mint tin, but also making a game that was just insanely fun. Hey guys, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. I think 24 subscriptions away from 100, and I think I get a URL at that point. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's other things that I have to do, but I would love to get to that point. So please support me. If you have any comments, maybe I've done something wrong, or I mis-explained something, or any numerous amount of things that I could have done, which are very possible, please leave a comment below. I love hearing from you guys, and I try to answer your comments as soon as I can. And if you want to see more content, please consider the subscription. I will be setting up a Patreon at some point in time. Please consider backing me on that as well. It makes things easier for me, and it makes it easier for me to bring content to you. And until next time, guys, thanks.